But let's talk about this. So the title of today's show is called What Happens Next? Because it's pretty clear to me what's coming here. And we talked about this on yesterday's show. It's so painfully obvious what's happening right now. Yesterday was the 17th straight day of inflows for the ETFs. January 2024, everything changed in Bitcoin and in the world. Bitcoin has all of a sudden become this salvation for an otherwise dying and bleeding market and economy. Everybody's rushing into Bitcoin because it's the only asset that's doing anything right now. But it's so much different than any other asset because there's a scarce supply of it, a very, very scarce supply of Bitcoin. And yesterday I saw that Grayscale is adding Bitcoin now. So for the first couple months here, Grayscale was basically funneling all their Bitcoin to these other ETFs. And if you think about how this whole thing works and the price, the reason why I'm talking about this today, because there's so much demand right now. There's so many people buying Bitcoin right now, and the price is hardly moving. Why? Why is that? But if you think about how these institutions, these ETF companies are getting their Bitcoin, they're not buying it from Coinbase. They're not buying it on the exchanges. So when they're buying Bitcoin from either Grayscale or however else they're obtaining it, that price is not reflected in the exchange rate itself. So an example would be if BlackRock had agreements with a mining company, or they had agreements with Grayscale, and they were buying their Bitcoin for, let's say, 100,000 because it's so scarce right now, or say even 90,000. If they were buying that off the exchanges, that would have zero impact on the price. And I think that's kind of what we're living through right now. But eventually that Bitcoin's going to run out. Because yesterday there was 1 month's supply of Bitcoin bought in one day. And at the same time, the Bitcoin miners' holdings are at an all-time low for the last 14 years. So if you just take a step back and you think about what's happening here. Basically, these ETFs have been buying their Bitcoin from Grayscale. It's kind of been flooding out of there into these ETFs. The Bitcoin miners have been also selling to these big ETF companies. Like BlackRock owns almost 15 or 20% of every Bitcoin mining company. So if you don't think that they have any influence on where their Bitcoin goes when they mine a block, I think you're being pretty naive. So just think about that. Put all that together. We had 17th straight day, an all-time high of inflows. Grayscale is actually now adding Bitcoin instead of selling Bitcoin to these other ETFs. 1 month supply of Bitcoin was bought in one day yesterday. 1 month supply, 450 Bitcoin are mined every day. So the total there, 1 month supply of Bitcoin was bought in one day by the ETFs only. And that would be catastrophic if there was only the ETFs buying. That's not including retail. That's not including Tether. That's not including MicroStrategy. That's not including Block, who's putting, I think, 10% of their gross profits into Bitcoin every month. It's going to dry up. And I think that there's a couple things happening right now. And this is kind of the point I want to make today, is that there's a couple things happening right now. And I really believe that they are doing everything that they possibly can to keep the price down. And the reason they're doing that is because they don't want any eyes on it. They don't want people to see the price of Bitcoin running up, because when they do, there's going to be even less Bitcoin. So if you think about that, they're going to eventually run out of Bitcoin. It's inevitable at this point, and it's just a matter of when. But when that happens, they're pretty much going to have three options. First one is they're going to run up the price. This is kind of their playbook. This is their three options here. As they continue running out of Bitcoin to buy, they're going to run the price up to tempt people. That's going to be their first play. And if you think about that, there's been a lot of people who have been holding Bitcoin for a lot of years. And all of a sudden, if they run the price up to $700,000 US, how many people are going to hold on to their Bitcoin at that price? There'll be some, but there'll also be a lot of people who maybe bought that Bitcoin at any point, actually, in this so far, But let's say they run it up to $700,000 US. They're just going to tempt people to sell their Bitcoin to them. That's how they're going to do it. They're going to run up the price. It's going to be very, people's eyes are just going to go like this. They're going to see all the things that they can buy with their newfound wealth, and they're going to sell their Bitcoin, and it's going to go to BlackRock. So that's the first option that they have. And when I say they, I mean like the control structure, the people who have been in charge for the last 100 or 1,000 years. That when I say they, that's who I'm talking about. The central banks, the big institutions like BlackRock. We know that they all collude together on trying to direct the path of the world. I don't think anybody here would disagree with that. So when I say they, that's who I'm talking about. The second option that they have here is that they're going to make the cost of living so high that you're going to have to sell some of your Bitcoin. And they've been doing that. If you've been to the grocery store lately or filled up your tank, they've been doing that. They've been making things as painfully expensive as possible. And if you're somebody who has Bitcoin and lives on a Bitcoin standard, you have to sell that Bitcoin for fiat. And so the more that they can drive up prices and make things more expensive, you're going to be forced to sell some of your Bitcoin to pay to live, whether that's your mortgage, your rent, food on your table, gas in your tank. They're going to keep running those prices up to the point where they're going to force people like me, like you, to sell some of their Bitcoin to pay for your living expenses. That's the second option that they have there. The third option is that they're just going to steal it from you. They're going to steal it from you. And I know that that's seems crazy, sounds crazy. They confiscated the gold back in the 30s from everybody to pay for their debts, to pay for their wars. But they're going to do it. They're going to try it. They're going to, if you do it properly, though, you can be immune from that. And that's kind of the point here. Oh, sorry. I almost blocked somebody there. Hope I didn't. But anyways, so that's the three things. They're going to run the price up to tempt you. They need to get Bitcoin. They need to have more of a supply because they're going to run out here eventually. And when that happens, then what? There's a reason why they only buy a certain amount of Bitcoin every day. Look at every day for the last 3 months. BlackRock didn't go out and buy $200,000 or 200,000 Bitcoin in one day, even though they could have. They pretty much have unlimited capital, but they buy it every single day. Why? First of all, that's all they can get a hold of. They're buying the Bitcoin off the exchanges, over-the-counter exchanges, and that's all the Bitcoin that's available at the time. Second one is that if they buy too much and they start looking at too many sources it's going to drive the price up. So I think that they're really slow playing this whole thing. They're buying every single day, and they're adding Bitcoin slowly over time onto their balance sheet, but they're going to run out. And so when that happens, they have three options. They're going to run up the price to try to force you to sell it. They're going to make the cost of living so high that you're going to be forced to sell it that way, or they're just going to straight up steal it from you. So, I mean, what can we do about that? That's the question here. Oh, balance is below 500 sats. Let me top up quickly here so we don't cut off the Zapdot stream, folks. Top up. Zap. Paying for more air time. So the question is here, what do we do about it? And at the start of the show, I said that we should be visualizing how this whole thing's going to play out and how you want to react to it all. Because it's pretty easy to say that, yeah, you know, if Bitcoin went up to $700,000, I'm not going to sell it. I'm not going to sell it till it's $7 million or $700 million, whatever that is. It's very easy to sit here when the price isn't moving and say that about yourself. But then all of a sudden, when you're put in that position, there might be a lot of people that change their mind on that. And so I think that we really need to take some time to prepare for this. Visualize what if Bitcoin did go to $7 million tomorrow, what would that look like for you? Are you going to be selling it? Do you want to leave a legacy here, or do you want to buy a Lamborghini? That's kind of what you have to see, because you have this wealth. You're holding the greatest asset that's ever existed in history right now. And you're going to have the most evil and corrupt and powerful people on earth coming after that Bitcoin. So you can't just be reactive here. You need to be preparing for this whole thing and how you're going to, what your play is there. Okay, let me go back here. So that's the question you have to ask yourself is, do you want to leave a legacy, or do you want to have a Lamborghini? That's kind of the thing you have to think about there. Chris, good morning. Good to see you. And then the second one here is that if they're going to make the cost of living so high that you're going to be forced to sell one, you have to counteract that yourself. And I think that if you really want to make a dent in this world, and if you really want to be part of this whole generational wealth thing that we're moving into here, you're holding that right now. But if you really want to make a dent here, you're going to have to make some sacrifices, I think, in your life. And that doesn't mean that you're going to have to, stop doing things with your friends or cancel the trip that you're going to do. I just think that you really need to take a good look at, what do you really need in life? And is there any way that you can be putting some of that money into Bitcoin instead of buying dumb shit? So work as hard as you can, make as much as you can, make sure that you keep the lights on, stay solvent, keep food on your table. And then whatever you have excess with that, that's what you put into Bitcoin. But don't get into a position where you're going to be having to sell some of your Bitcoin to BlackRock. That's kind of the key here. So whatever you're navigating in life right now, make sure that you stay solvent, you keep food on the table, and you work your ass off here during this time, because we have a very, very small window of opportunity here. And as I said, if you really want to make a dent in this world for your family and for the future, when my grandkids are looking back, then you're going to have to make some sacrifices right now. And then the third one is they're going to try to steal it from you. That's an obvious one. Get it off the exchanges. Start selling some of your Bitcoin ETFs. If you did have a bunch of capital in that old system and you're holding Bitcoin ETFs, or you're holding Bitcoin mining companies, or even MicroStrategy, they're going to take the lowest hanging fruit here. That's what they're going to be able to take from you. So as much as you can, at the fastest rate that you can, start pulling that off of out from the legacy system and putting it into Bitcoin that you can take self-custody of. Because when they do come to steal the Bitcoin, that's going to be the hardest thing for them to do, is whatever Bitcoin you're holding in self-custody right now on your cold card, on your Trezor, on any device, that's going to be the last place they go. They're going to start with the exchanges, then they're going to move to the ETFs, and then they're going to probably move to Coinbase. And they can do a lot of damage there if they really want to. So you want to distance yourself as much as possible from that happening. So take the Bitcoin, get it off the exchanges, get it into your own cold storage, and protect that with your life. Sorry, I'm trying to. We got another YouTuber on Zaptouch stream here. KNNMRAN Zap 420 sats. Thanks for the rants. Are they rants? I don't know. It's just talking. We have to be ready for this stuff. That's what this whole show is about, to actually discuss things in a very logical way. Start thinking about it, because you have to have a strategy here. You have to have a strategy. I talked about this show that I've been watching, Physical 100, earlier in the week. And the one thing I noticed, we're getting down to the end. We actually watched the finale last night. We watched the winner. But the one thing I noticed there is that there was 100 very powerful, very athletic, and very strong athletes in this competition. It started with 100, and they got down to one person. And they were all incredibly gifted people, and who put a ton of work into their craft, built their bodies in a way where they could thrive in this type of competition. But when you get down to it, when you get to the 10% and the 5% and the 2% of people, and then to the winner, the difference there was here. It wasn't their strength. It was their mind and their strategy on things. And I specifically remember 3 different occasions where the eventual winner talked about his strategy on kind of like their interviews between. But one of them was how he held his wrist in one of the competitions. That was his strategy. Another one was he was actually waiting. You could feel they were pushing something against each other, and he would wait for them to take off their pressure slightly, and that's when they would push. And there's a couple more instances like that. But the thing that really stood out for me there was that it was the strategy. It wasn't the strength or the work or the effort. It was the strategy there. So once you get to that point, when you're going to be competing with the 5 to 1% of people, it's all about strategy. And so you want to make sure that as we head into this next 12 months, into this next bull cycle, which is coming, without a doubt, there's going to be the biggest supply crunch in history of the world, I think. But you need to be ready for that, and you need to have a strategy in place so that when it does happen, you're not caught off guard by it. So that's it.